Hello everyone, today we are going to break down the House of the Dragon teaser that was released earlier in the week. House of the Dragon is a Game of Thrones prequel that is about the Targaryen Civil War, also known as the Dance of the Dragons. But before we get into that, remember to like the video, it helps out the channel a lot, and subscribe and yada yada yada. Let's get to it. The first thing of note is the Skull of Balerion, the Black Dread. We actually see this skull in Game of Thrones Season 7 when Cersei and Qyburn are trying out the Scorpion. Balerion is the largest dragon, at least of what we know, to have existed in the world of ice and fire. Balerion was ridden by Aegon the Conqueror. The dragon was nearly 200 years of age when it died in 94 AC, pretty much before the show takes place, which kind of sucks we won't get to see a live version, but we will get to see Vhagar, which is the second largest dragon, so pretty good runner-up prize. In the next shot, we see the Hand of the Kingpin. The Hand of the King that we will see the majority of is Otto Hightower, who this is. He is the father of Queen Alicent Hightower, who is in the picture with him. I believe this is the first time we see anyone from House Hightower. I don't believe they were in the original series. I know in the flashback with Ned Stark in Season 6 there was a Hightower with Sir Arthur Dayne, but they never mention him as one. Otto was considered to be quite intelligent and blunt. He was quite opportunistic as well. Otto convinced King Viserys after his wife died to marry his daughter Alicent, which the rest of the small council thought Otto overstepped his position. Otto had quite the rivalry with Daemon Targaryen, the brother to the king. He thought he could be the next Maegor the Cruel if he ascended to the Iron Throne. But he may have had another reason why he disliked the prince. Rumors circulated around the Red Keep that Daemon had slept with his daughter Alicent and took her maiden head, which would anger any father who is trying to set up a marriage, especially since people really cared about that kind of thing back in the day. In the next shot, we see King Viserys Targaryen sitting on the Iron Throne. He is holding the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire. It's never said that Viserys carried the sword, but since Daemon has Dark Sister, the other famed sword of House Targaryen, it makes sense that Viserys would carry it. He is the king after all. It looks awesome. It looks like it has dragon wings, which I love. I also like the small detail of him wearing a ring with a Targaryen sigil on it. I love the small details in this. They're not necessary, but it really helps make it feel more authentic, which is something I wish the Witcher TV series would try and do more of. Viserys was a gleeful guy. He was a people pleaser. He was never considered strong-willed, but when he made a decision, he stood by it. Like when he made his daughter, Rhaenyra, his heir, even after Alicent bore him sons. Many people on the small council urged him to change this, but he refused. In the next shot, we see Rhaenyra Targaryen, the firstborn child of Viserys. This is the younger Rhaenyra. We see the older version in the next clip. First, props to HBO's casting department. I mean, they nailed it. They look really similar. When they initially announced that they had cast younger versions of Rhaenyra and Alicent, I thought it would be like a one-off flashback kind of thing, but from what I've seen in the trailer and from leaked pictures, they're going to be a major part of the show for at least the first season. So there will be at least 2 timelines happening in the show. It's going to be fairly easy to track. It won't be like The Witcher. You'll know when they switch. The reason why they are doing this is that they want to show how certain characters ended up where they are in the current timeline. So why characters are loyal to Rhaenyra and why some are loyal to Alicent. These flashbacks will also show the feud between Alicent and Rhaenyra and how they have come to hate each other. Rhaenyra, like many Targaryens, was quick to anger, but some considered her quite charming as well. Her uncle Daemon declared her to be the most beautiful maiden in the 7 kingdoms. In the next shot, we see the present timeline with Rhaenyra and Daemon Targaryen. My guess is that they are on Dragonstone. It looks very familiar to the beaches we saw in Game of Thrones Season 7. Daemon is quite the womanizer. If I had to use a phrase to describe him, it would be, "This guy fucks." He was also a renowned swordsman and was considered to be the most dangerous man in Westeros. He had many friends, some of them being from Flea Bottom, so they were undesirables. He would be considered the black sheep of the family, but Viserys seemed to like his brother and would give him second chances. The two did have some issues though with each other. There was a rumor circulating that Daemon had taken Rhaenyra's main head, which angered her father Viserys. Like I said, this guy fucks. In the next shot, we see a melee at a tourney. I believe the person with their back to us is Daemon Targaryen. He has the Targaryen sigil on his shield. He also has wings on his helmet, which is pretty awesome. I know this takes place before, but this is the kind of armor Rhaegar wore on the Trident versus Robert Baratheon. This seems to be more of what George R.R. Martin had in mind. He seems like he has more influence this time around, which is a good thing. I think they would have done the same thing with Game of Thrones, but they didn't have the budget right away. Now that they got the budget, it's going to be slightly closer to what George wants. Also, the armor is amazing. It is a work of art. I believe Daemon is fighting Criston Cole. Criston Cole is part of the Kingsguard and becomes Lord Commander at some point in the series. Daemon is actually using Dark Sister in this melee, which is quite a dangerous sword to be using in a melee, but sure, why not? This tourney really grabs the attention of Viserys because Daemon is not a man to be trifled with. Anyone who can defeat him is quite a skilled fighter. The tourney took place before Criston was on the Kingsguard, and this victory really helped him get that white cloak. In the next shot, we see Corlys Velaryon, also known as the Sea Snake. Corlys is the greatest adventurer Westeros has ever known. His voyages made him extremely wealthy. His house even became more wealthy than the Lannisters. His seat is at Driftmark, which is really close to the Targaryen ancestral home of Dragonstone. House Velaryon also has the blood of old Valyria, like the Targaryens. Their house words are the old, the brave, the true. Corlys was considered to be a brilliant man and very proud, but Queen Alicent thought he was more arrogant than anything. In the next shot, we see the rest of House Velaryon. So the first thing you notice is that they all have the same kind of hair, it being silver, whereas Targaryen's hair tends to be more platinum blonde. They both have the blood of old Valyria, so they seem to share that trait of having unique colored hair. You can see the sigil of House Velaryon on Corlys' chest, which looks much better compared to the fan art one that seems to be popular on the internet. On his right, we see his wife Rhaenys Targaryen. In the books, she actually has black hair, which she got from her mother, who was a Baratheon, but it seems like they have decided to go with the traditional Targaryen hair. I'm guessing just so it would be easier for the general audience members to understand she was a Targaryen and not be confused about it. I saw people complaining on Twitter about it, but it really isn't that big a deal. Rhaenys actually had quite a good claim to the Iron Throne. Her father was the eldest son of old King Jaehaerys, and she was his only child, but the Lords of Westeros chose Viserys Targaryen instead. Even though she had a better claim, he was a man. She became known as the Queen that never was, so she had some animosity for the king. Between Corlys and Rhaenys, we see their son Laenor Velaryon. Laenor did have a claim to the throne as well, but like his mother was passed over. He is also a dragon rider. His dragon was Sea Smoke. On Rhaenys' right, we see their eldest child and daughter, Rhaenyra Targaryen. It is said she got her beauty from her mother and her adventurous spirit from her father. According to Mushroom, who is a character in the Fire and Blood book, which this is based off, she was almost as pretty as her brother. We see two other Velaryons in the background. Those are Corlys' brothers. They were never named in the books, so we don't actually know their names, but I would assume they play quite a role in the wars to come. In the next shot, we see that they are entering the throne room. We see the Iron Throne in the background and King Viserys and his daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen at the head of the table. It looks like they are having a banquet of some kind. I believe this is a betrothal ceremony. We see the Targaryen sigil and the Velaryon sigil hanging from the walls behind them. Laenor does marry Rhaenyra at some point. I'm guessing this is where they present Laenor to her, or this is the feast before the wedding. If this was after the wedding, they would be at the head of the table together. Rhaenyra did not want to marry Laenor at all, but Viserys told her if she didn't, she would no longer be his heir. So that is quite the threat. Viserys knew that House Velaryon had no love for them at this point. After they got passed over twice for the Iron Throne, this was a good way to mend their relationship. One of the reasons she didn't want to marry him is that Rhaenys didn't exactly fancy women. He enjoyed the company of men, but nevertheless, they married. The person at the far left of the high table is Lionel Strong, who serves on Viserys' small council. He was either the master of laws or the hand of the king at this time. Lionel was extremely smart. He studied at the Citadel for a time, earning 6 links. House Strong is a new house for people who have only watched Game of Thrones. Their seat is at Harrenhal, which is in the Riverlands. Lionel has 4 children, but his 2 sons will play a major role in the series. Harwin Strong, known as the strongest man in the 7 Kingdoms, and his younger brother Lars Strong. In the next shot, we see Lady Misaria, also known as Lady Misery. She was a paramour to Prince Daemon Targaryen. Like I said, this guy fucks. She was a dancing girl in King's Landing where Daemon saw her and grew quite fond of her. She's originally from Lyce. In the next shot, we see Alicent Hightower charge at somebody with a dagger. The dagger should look familiar to those who have seen Game of Thrones. It is the Skull of Balerion steel dagger that Arya used to kill the Night King. It was also given to an assassin to kill Bran Stark in Season 1. Now, this is the present Alicent Hightower, so she is the queen at this point. We do not see the face of the actress who plays the younger version of her, but once again, HBO casting department, props to you, because you nailed it. In the background, we see 2 members of the Kingsguard. On her left is Sir Harold Westerling, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and on her right is Sir Criston Cole. Clearly, Harold is trying to stop whatever she's about to do. Criston doesn't seem to care. I thought this could be when Criston proclaimed Alicent's firstborn son, Aegon, as king over Rhaenyra after Viserys' death, which begins the Civil War, but Harold is not living at this point in the story, so this is something that happens before that. Unless they are changing some of the history for the show, which they could be doing. The actor they have playing Harold is Graham McTavish. He's a pretty big name, so maybe they want to expand his role. If you have any thoughts of what this could be, leave it down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think. In the next shot, we see a tourney taking place, and they are in the middle of a joust. We see some familiar house banners, Stark and Bolton. We are behind 2 women who are watching the joust. The one on the left is Rhaenyra Targaryen, the one on the right is Alicent Hightower. This could be the tourney where the term blacks and greens was coined. On the 5th anniversary of Alicent's marriage to Rhaenyra's father, Viserys, a great tourney was held. Alicent wore the green of House Hightower, and Rhaenyra wore the Targaryen colors of red and black. After this, people referred to Alicent's party as the Greens and Rhaenyra's party as the Blacks. People noted how the court was being split into 2 factions, but King Viserys did not take mind to these statements and pretty much ignored it. We see some more house banners from this angle, the Lannister sigil and a Sun sigil. I thought this was Karstark at first, but it is actually House Lefford. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is a principal house to House Lannister. We see the Tarly sigil in the background as well, which is a huntsman, so the House Samwell came from. We see the rider of House Tarly lose. I'm not sure what the house of the other rider belongs to, maybe House Westerling, because it seems to have clams on it, but it's kind of hard to tell, it's just a guess. If you have any ideas, leave it down below. In the next shot, I believe we are on Driftmark, the seat of House Velaryon. We see someone of House Velaryon fighting another man here. The reason I say this is Driftmark is that there's a giant painting of a ship in the background. Corlys is the greatest sea voyager, so it makes sense. I'm not sure what this is about. The man is not Rhaenys, so it could be one of Corlys' brother's sons fighting, but what they are fighting about, I honestly have no idea. In the final shot, we see Rhaenyra walk into the throne room, and we see the new look Iron Throne. It looks much closer to the version George R.R. Martin had envisioned, much more pointy. It's not exactly the same, but it's a nice hybrid between the throne we saw in Game of Thrones and the one George R.R. Martin wanted. You may be asking how could they have changed the throne, which I think is quite easily explained. Whatever ruler, Robert, or maybe even a ruler before that, was probably getting sick of being stabbed by the damn chair. In Fire and Blood, they discuss how rulers would sometimes cut themselves when sitting on the Iron Throne. So whatever ruler probably just had some people work on it, make it more comfortable and look nicer. which makes sense if you think about it, but this one does look much more menacing and like it was forged by Dragonfire. I cannot tell who is sitting in it, to be honest. It looks like Viserys because he's the only Targaryen that has that long hair. Daemon has more of a medium long look, but the way the person is sitting in it makes me think this is Daemon. There's a bit of a swagger to the way he is sitting, if that makes any sense. You may also notice that there is no 7-pointed star anywhere in the throne room as well, which is different. Targaryens have had a troubled past with the faith. The faith does not like how they marry siblings. So the religion for King's Landing isn't exactly set like it is when the events of Game of Thrones occur. Baelor, who the Great Sept is named after, won't be around for another 50 years, so King's Landing is going to look slightly different as well. This teaser was awesome. It has delivered on everything. I don't know how anybody could not be excited about this show. It seems like it's going to be a hybrid of what George R. R. Martin wanted to see in the original series, but they didn't have the budget to do, and what Game of Thrones has already established. 2022 cannot come soon enough. So what do you guys think of the teaser? Leave it down in the comments below, and if you want more Game of Thrones content, please subscribe and like the video. Check out the Twitter, link in the description below, and as always, have an awesome day.
And blood. Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.